All right, try this again. Good morning. It is a Friday, Good Friday. So, you know what that means. It is Friday, but Sunday's coming. So, let's talk a little bit about this. Today we're going to be talking about hope because that really is the epitome of what today is all about. The hope about Christ coming back. Can you imagine being Jesus's disciples and his mother sitting there weeping and wailing at the cross over his death on the cross, but still there was a hope that this man that they believed was a Messiah would get out of this until the very time that they took him down from the cross and put him in the tomb. There was still that hope. And the verse today is Romans 15:13. May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him. And see, hope and despair, even though in grammar they are so vastly different, in that moment when Christ hung on the cross, I imagine that they were hand in hand. I imagine that there was a hope while there was still a fear, a hope while there was still distrust of those around them. There was a hope in the midst of all the chaos. Have you ever felt like that? Have you ever had a time in your life where everything around you just looked grim? Everything around you looked like hopes and dreams that you may have had have just gone off by the wayside. Well, I have. I know quite a few that have. I have a friend that posted yesterday about a job transition. She's navigating it beautifully, but on the other side of it is there's a little bit of confusion, I'm sure, in people's minds when they go through a job transition. Because especially if it's a reduction in force. I unfortunately had to be a part of a reduction in force years ago. And I was the one going around telling the people that they were being reduced from the staff. And for me, being the deliverer of that news was devastating. And I felt hope for their future for them, but I also felt devastated for the moment we were in. Can you imagine that being what it was like on that Good Friday years and years ago? That hope of this was our Savior standing on this cross. I still have hope. I still have belief in this, but trying to reconcile our brain with, but why is he hanging on a cross? Why is this? And he had spoken throughout his life that this was what it was going to be, but nobody truly believed it until it actually happened, right? So when you're in the midst of the storms, my favorite song is for this time is Jeremy Camp's Overcomer song. I love singing that because when I'm in the midst of a storm, it reminds me all that God has done in me and all that God has given me to be able to overcome these, because I can't overcome them in my own strength, right? And so I cling to this verse. I cling to that Overcomer song. And I remind myself that he is the source of my hope in the middle of everything. Back when Mike and my sister-in-law and my brother were all in the hospital in 2021, and I sat there for 3 days just looking at my phone, I was in a pit of despair. I never doubted that they would come out better on the other side. I never had a fear for their well-being during that. Even in the most grimmest of times, I never had the fear of their well-being because they still clung on to the hope. And when you cling on to a hope, not clung on, we're not talking Star Wars, but cling on to the hope, we are talking about a peace that only God can give, A hope that is instilled in God brings about a peace and a comfort that only He can give. Nothing changed around me. I still had 3 people in the hospital. I had 3 people that were in very grim shape, but the peace that came over me. And so I want to challenge you today is whatever turbulence or turmoil you experience, what does hope look like in that season? Maybe it's the season you're in right now. What does the hope look like for seasons of turbulence in your life right now? And where have you seen God show up when you least expect it? There's multiple times I can point to where I've seen God show up. Times that most people weren't even looking at me for the trauma that I was going through or the circumstances I was going to. It was actually happening to somebody else, but it was impacting me. And in just a whisper of His name, I was able to get that peace, that Holy Jesus, I need you now. And I would get His peace come and fill me and provide comfort to me and provide me the ability to keep moving forward and keep being His hands and feet in the moment I needed to be His hands and feet. And then I want to ask you, what are you choosing to hope for today? I have some big hopes, and I actually have this as my journaling prompt for today is, what am I choosing to hope for today? I have spent a lot of years believing that hope and anticipation and excitement building and all that was intended for everybody else. That I was just a facilitator of helping bring joy and content to other people. But I was reminded by God in my studies not too long ago that He intends that for me as well. And I want you to know that He intends that for you. So I hope that you are choosing to be hopeful today. And I want to know, what are you hoping for? What are you excited about? What is an anticipation in your spirit building up for right now? So I hope you take time this weekend and really reflect on what is going on with this Easter weekend. It's not about the Easter bunnies, the deviled eggs, the Easter egg hunts, the ham. It's not about any of that stuff. It's not about the butter yellow Pantone color for the spring color. It's not even about your dancing shoes for being at church. It's about the hope that Christ came, died on a cross so that we could be saved, so that we could be accepted into His kingdom. He paid that ultimate sacrifice just for you. He paid that sacrifice to provide us with hope. I mean, what could be a bigger hope than a miracle of a man that died on a cross walking out of a tomb? What could build up hope bigger than that? So I hope for you to see the glory and the majesty and the gift that He gave us on this Good Friday over 2,000 years ago. And I pray you have a great Easter weekend and keep your focus on the reason for a hope-filled weekend, filled with the love and the promises that Christ gave us when He hung on that cross. Y'all have a great weekend.